Um, Thank you, Anthony. I don't feel fabulous. I was just laughing just to let you know this was my breakfast this morning was Fritos and Diet Pepsi. The stress level is real. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us last minute. We know you got this. If you could put yourself on mute just to limit the background noise.
I'm going to mute everyone and unmute you.
Okay. Okay, and we'll go through the questions at the end because maybe some of your questions will have been answered. So again, thank you very much for coming on last minute. We know that the guidance just came out last night at 5 o'clock. So it gave us a little bit of a chance to review it. And again, Shah and I'm going to do a majority of the talking, but Shah really is our executive order health directive guru. So she'll probably jump in if I forgot something or am mistaken about something. So, and then at the end, we'll go through your questions. First, just to make an announcement, as Bhavesh, who is our vice chairman, just informed me that the governor just announced an additional $60 million is going to be allocated to the phase 3 grant program, which many of you have applied to. I guess, obviously we know that that was very oversubscribed and a lot of people haven't heard. So it's great that there'll be an additional $60 million put into that fund. And if you had not heard about your grant specifically, that you'll now get some of that money. And it looks like the way they've allocated it, they're giving out the full 20,000. I also do encourage you to look in your counties. A lot of counties, I know Monmouth, Union, not Morris, but many of the counties have individual grant programs too. So make sure you're reaching out to your county offices for grant possibilities that they may have.
And Middlesex has, if you're in Middlesex County, they still have money. They're trying to give it away. Just a heads up.
Okay. So today I'm going to review the new executive order and health guidance on the governor's announcement. But I will review the plexiglass guidance, the bar seating restrictions, hours of operation, and as well as some other small details that may or may have not changed, just for some clarity purposes. But before I begin, I do want to tell you I had a phone call with the governor's office last night because there was this rumor going around that restaurants were going to be closed on the 23rd. And, if I had $1 for every time I heard someone told me or I heard, I would be retired. So I did call the governor's office. I think it came out because there was a rumor that schools were going to close after the 23rd, and that since has been retracted, but it went like wildfire, meaning that it was going to be all businesses. So that is not the intention. There is no plans to close down restaurants, but I do say it with the caveat that we know that things do change quickly, and as we're seeing numbers escalate, you can never kind of speculate on what the governor is going to do. I do think that you've seen what's happened in Newark, where that some municipalities have limited or made their own closures or shut down at like 8 o'clock. And I think that will be continuing. You'll see some of that maybe continuing, and the governor will allow that. So in those towns or urban settings where there's a huge spike in numbers, you may see those towns take it upon themselves. And you'll probably be hearing more of that later today. The changes in the EO and the guidance will be updated in our prevention preparedness plan that we have, which is available to all of our members along with our sanitation checklist. So we do have that we will be updating that over the next couple days. And then again, that is available to our members. It's a preparedness plan. It's a checklist for sanitation. I encourage you all to have it. We are working with the governor's office as well as several legislators to look about how do we use this guidance and how do we use our sanitation. And if we can, and restaurants can present that they are really doing this, that they would be able to increase capacity. So myself, along with many other board members, are working on some new strategies to offer the governor's office with the help of legislators to assist with allowing our restaurants to operate at a higher capacity. So just know we are always trying to be creative. We are always trying to find ways that we can just at least nibble at the edges. It's difficult. The narrative is not on our side, and we do what we can to refute. The association, I just issued a press statement pushing back on that Stanford study that came out. There's a lot of holes in it. And the National Restaurant Association also came out with their own. So we will be pushing back on that narrative. Okay, so I'm just going to start going through the EOs now. We'll start with the outdoor, as there's really not too many changes with the outdoor dining, but this does supersede the Executive Directive 20019. And I think the big thing to take away, and I'll go through more, is that this does, and this is something we're pushing back on, this also limits bar seating for outdoor bars.
Executive Order 194.
194, right. It does limit or does restrict outdoor bar seating. So it will limit the seating, a maximum of 8 customers per table, obviously, unless they're, in the same household. You must install the physical barriers at partitions, registers, bars, host stands when maintaining 6 feet is difficult. I'm going to get to the igloos in a second. Bar seating, and this is new, this is K, item K on page 2. Bar seating is prohibited. Standing in a bar area is similarly not prohibited. Table seating must be at least 6 feet from a bar. So this is one area where we are trying to get that changed. We were told when this came out that outdoor seating nothing was going to change, but the fact that they are including this no bar seating for outdoors is something obviously that, it just doesn't make sense. Ensuring that 6 feet physical distance between the workers and the customer, except at the moment of payment or when the employees are servicing the table. Employees, and this is for mask wearing, and this is something that where the nature of the employee's work does not allow for 6 feet distancing, employees shall ensure that such mask wearing as provided below and shall install physical barriers between workstations whenever possible. And again, this goes to back of house, especially when they're working over. And I know this is I'm going into front of house, but just always remember that if they're working over a flame, they do not need to wear a mask. Mask requirements: employees may be permitted to remove their face mask when employees are situated at their workstation and are more than 6 feet from other individuals at the workplace, or when an individual is alone in a walled office. You must make available at your expense such masks to employees, but also know that if you have a logoed mask that says the name of your company and they want to wear a surgical or an N95 mask that's more protective, you have to allow them to do that. Immediately separating, I'm sorry, let me just go to the igloo thing because I think that is the one thing that is the most, so, sorry. One new thing is that you must conduct health checks for all live performers, and your live performers must be, whether it's indoors or outdoors, they have to be 10 feet away from the customers. So outdoor areas, in addition to the requirements, food and beverage establishments offering service may institute the following policies with respect to their outdoor area defined as open air spaces. Again, this is not new, but it needs some clarity. If there's no roof or cover, or have a fixed roof or temporary seasonal awning or cover with at least 2 sides that would comprise of over 50% of the total wall space, if the space were fully enclosed. So if you have 2 walls, remember, you are still considered an outdoor facility. And I know that a lot of restaurants have taken down walls so that they can continue to operate as such. And therefore the 25% capacity does not pertain to you. So in the domes, an outdoor area shall include enclosed structures such as a plastic dome that seats an individual party. They must meet the following criteria. The use of the structure complies with the requirements for outdoor dining, and that the guidance is the same. So you are limited to no more than 8 people inside that plastic dome or structure. The structure must be ventilated to a minimum of 15 minutes in between parties and cleaned individually in accordance with CDC guidelines between seatings. The structure and the use of the structures must comply with the applicable codes, regulations, fire code, and safety, and that you must obtain the proper municipal permits and approvals before erecting that. So obviously your municipality to get approval from your municipality. So that's really the difference on the outdoor dining. Shad, am I missing anything on outdoor? That's
No, just make sure it can't, if you have decide to get the igloos, no more than 8 people are allowed inside. I don't know if you said that. I'm sorry, I was looked away for a second.
no, that's okay. Okay, so on,
Anything. Do you want to tell them about if there's a positive case?
I was going to do that when we get to indoor dining,
Okay.
more comprehensive, but you go ahead and tell them about that. So that's for indoor or outdoor. If your restaurant gets a positive case.
So I'm just going to read you my notes. I'm going to read you my notes. I'm just going to read them. You must close off areas that was occupied by positive COVID-19 case. Open windows, doors, use ventilating fans to increase air circulation in area that was occupied. Here's the new portion. Wait 24 hours or as long as practical before cleaning and disinfecting the area. The old executive order and protocol said you had to close for at least 24 hours. This new protocol, you close the area off for a while, properly ventilate, and then you can go ahead and clean and disinfect that area. If you're notified of a positive COVID-19 guest, staff member, or vendor after your establishment was thoroughly cleaned, no additional closure, cleaning, or disinfecting is required. That is also new. So I'm going to use an example that I have here. For example, if you have a staff member who tested positive COVID-19 and that last worked on Wednesday, but you followed the cleaning guidelines set forth by the CDC or had a professional cleaning company come in on Friday, no additional action is required. So let's pretend today is Friday, the employee came in on Wednesday, last worked on Wednesday, tested positive on Thursday, still haven't come into your establishment, but you have moved forward and cleaned. You do not have to shut down, close, and have someone come in. That is new to the protocols, which is a great thing for us.
Right, limit your ability, your requirement to have to shut down.
Yes.
One of the things is the hours of operation that we know are restricted for indoor seating, that indoor establishments must close at 10 o'clock, and I'll get into that in a second. That does not pertain to your outdoor operations. So if you are operating still outdoors under a tent, a bar, well, not bars, but table seating, you do not have to adhere to the 10 o'clock closing. That is only for indoor operations. What does it mean to have to close your doors at 10 o'clock? Because there's a lot of confusion and questions about this. Technically, all of your customers should be out of the building by 10 o'clock. It's not last call at 10 o'clock. It's, the customers should be out of the building, not your employees. Your employees don't have to be out. They can still be in the building cleaning, doing whatever. Now, I pushed back and said, what's going to happen? Turn into a pumpkin at 10:01. No, obviously, if people are still paying their check, it's 10:05, 10:10. Remember, this is going to be enforced by the locals, your local, your local jurisdiction. So I'm not telling you to fudge this, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be panicking if people are still trying to pay their check at 10:05. There's a lot of people, and you're trying to rush getting everybody out. Obviously, there's some leeway in that time period, but really the technical term is they want everybody out of, or all your guests out of the building by 10 o'clock. And again, but that does not apply to outdoors. So just to go through, again, I encourage everybody to have this is for indoor too, have an established written worksite specific COVID prevention plan at every location and perform a comprehensive risk assessment at your work areas. The association, we have that, ask us for it. We'll be happy to send it. All you have to do is just put your name of your restaurant and location on there, and then who would be in charge of your COVID prevention maintenance plan. Again, when 6 feet distancing is not feasible between tables, you may erect physical barriers between the tables. The barriers must be a minimum of 5 feet in height, but cannot be more than 6 feet in height, and cannot be within 18 inches of a sprinkler head or block emergency and or fire exits. These physical barrier options include plexiglass or other non-porous dividers and partitions, and comply with current requirements regarding wall finishings. The establishments must ensure that these barriers do not restrict the airflow in the restaurant. Same thing, 8 people per table, unless they're from the same household or immediate family. Bar seating is prohibited. Standing in a bar area is similarly not permitted. And again, 6 feet, the table has to be 6 feet away from the bar. So I know a lot of people, when this was early discussed, and I thought so as well, you could push the high tops up to the bar and you would be okay. In this directive, it's saying that you really need to have 6 feet distancing between the table and the bar. Again, install physical barriers and partitions at your cash registers, bars, host stands, where you cannot maintain physical 6 feet distancing. One of the things that we are going to ask for is if plexiglass is okay, why can we not have plexiglass up between the bartender and the guest with an opening to obviously put the drink over the bar or pay? So that would be helpful, because then we could have the bar seating back. Again, eliminate self-service food such as buffets and salad bars. You can limit self-service drink stations as long as there's mostly routinely and regularly cleaned. So again, that's more for a fast casual. For those that have the Coke machines or the soda machines, you're able to still utilize those. Live performers, same thing as outdoors. Indoors, they must maintain 10 feet from your patrons and your staff. And then I think Shah went over what to do in case of a presumptive or a positive case from an employee or patron. There's been a lot of discussion, who do you call? You're supposed to contact your local health department, not the state, but your local health department to report it. And they will give you proper guidelines on what to do from there. One of the things is that requiring that your employees really maintain proper distancing from each other. And I know what happens certainly at the end of a shift. A lot of them get together, they'll sit down, they'll talk, they might grab something to eat. That really should not be allowed. You should not be having your staff participate in a after shift dinner. Keeping them separate is make sure that they're maintaining the proper 6 feet protocol. We had and obviously you can't control what your staff does. Just being candid, we know the governor has cited a situation that happened at a bar where a bartender and 9 people got COVID. But what you're not hearing is that 6 of those people were at a house party prior, or 5 days prior to being diagnosed with COVID. So however you can limit and really convey to your staff limiting Obviously, socialization is important. You can't tell them that they can't socialize, but this is where a lot of the cases are coming from. Your mask requirements are the same, no difference there. Again, I get a lot of questions on health checks on employees and temperature screening. You should be doing, so prior to each shift, conduct daily health checks of employees, such as temperature screening, visual symptom checks, self-assessments, health questionnaires consistent with the CDC. And then it has to be consistent with confidential requirements of ADA and the New Jersey LAD law. And what that means is that if you start logging your employees' health information, then that has to be kept separate in their separate medical file. So as you know, you're supposed to have 2 files for your employees, your regular personnel file and then an employee file. So let's use me for example. So in the office, there's a Mary Lou Halverson employee file and then a Mary Lou Halverson medical file. Once you start recording medical information from your staff, that has to be put into their medical file, which should be locked away, which is why most restaurants are not recording. They're just taking the temperature, and as long as they're not over 100, they're not recording it. So just be careful if you are recording your staff's medical information that you're adhering to the proper confidentiality laws. In addition, establishments must require your employees to wash hands. We know that. Encourage separation in break rooms. I mean, that is pretty much all the same. And I think that that's really it for the additions to the new EOs. Sha, again, before we go to the questions, am I missing anything specifically?
No, we covered everything that is new.
Okay, you want to just go to the.
We have some excellent questions.
Okay.
The 6 feet from the bar question.
Yeah.
I had a question about that. It's in the health and safety standards for indoor dining and outdoor dining. It was attached to the email we sent out for the webinar. That is on page. Yes, it's on page 2 for the bar seating to be at least 6 feet from the bar. Page 2, the second bullet down. That was a text message.
Yeah, in this webinar announcement, Sha attached all of the executive orders and the guidance. So if you just click on those links, you'll be able to get it.
Also, it's on our website on our COVID-19 resource page. We did some rearranging last night. So we have the executive orders on one side and the executive directives. So the executive directives are from the Department of Health, and of course, the executive orders are from the governor. A question, which is a very excellent question. Are restaurants and bar services inside a bowling entertainment center? So Janine, my question to you, are you considered an entertainment business, or are you under food and beverage? Because if you are considered entertainment, you would just need to close your food and beverage area at 10 p.m. and people can continue to bowl past 10 p.m., whatever your hours are. But again, that goes back to your NAICS code. I don't know what your code is, but if you are considered a food and beverage establishment, you must close your indoors at 10 p.m. Sorry, Mary Lou, I just figured I'd answer that question. Apologies.
Good. Nope, that's it.
Earlier, I don't really know the answer to this. What do we do if a guest has a temperature? If you're taking temperature, I can't go into my nail salon, so I would assume that you should not let that guest into your establishment. You're putting everyone inside at risk.
Yeah, I mean, you have as a right as a business owner, if someone, for the safety of your staff and your customers, to deny service, I would just make sure that if you are if you're conducting temperature checks on your guests, that you do it to everybody, that you're not discriminately, just only doing random people, that you're doing it to everybody, and that you have it posted that if you do have a temperature, that you will not be permitted, just so it's very transparent and that it's applicable to everybody.
Okay. Here's a question for you, Mary Lou. Where do the COVID test result go, into the medical file or employee file?
Medical file.
Okay.
Which the medical files always should be locked.
Are temperature checks required for each employee? We have employees fill out a questionnaire each day. I have one employee who does not want their temperature taken. The executive order states such as, which I, though, means, for example.
So in the executive orders, it doesn't mandate you have to take temperatures. It's a suggestion. If you read it, it says health screening such as temperature taking. I would, if your policy for your restaurant is that you're taking everybody's temperature, I would make sure that that is put in your employee handbook as part of your guidance, that this is something, again, it's documented that every employee is required to have their temperature taken. The Department of Health is not saying you have to take temperatures. It's just that is one of the suggestions of the health screenings.
Okay, next question. Anything different for banquet wedding venues? Can the affair be taken outside of the building at 10 p.m.?
Yes, you can go outside.
Okay. Someone mentioned, I did not see where this directive applies to venues.
And there's a few of my venue people on here, I see. So we've gone back and forth on this because really, if you look at it, they're not open to the public. It's a private event. And that's an argument. It's gray. It's a very gray area. I'll give you that. So it's a question that I think collectively we've decided it's better not to be asked. Just and see, because they are not open, right? You can't just walk into somebody's wedding and say, hello, I'm here, right? They're private events. But it is a food establishment. So are they also, could you say that they have to stop serving food and alcohol, but they could still be in there? Again, very gray area.
I thought the governor said in his news conference it applies to banquet halls.
He said it did, but if you notice when he said it, he didn't even know he had to have clarification on that.
Okay. Another question. Do you have the indoor dining regulations you're discussing today? Oh, that it was sent private. Yes, I'll send it to you. It was in the email that we sent out yesterday as well. Well, this morning, it came out this morning at 7 a.m. But I can send it to you privately. It's okay. Let's see.
And just going back to the venues really quick. I mean, obviously we're here to make sure that you're all adhering to the law. But I do think that is just myself and obviously a lot of our venues have asked their own attorneys for interpretation, and it is very gray. It's not a clear-cut answer.
Someone thanked us for getting clarification in the future. Can it be asked at the state to have these details when new regulations are announced?
Yeah. Shaw and I were running around the office. She kept poking her head in my office every 5 minutes. Like it was like 5:30. She's like, did we get it yet? And I said, not yet. And so finally we got it right about 5:30. And so we do keep on them. They're writing them, and it's interesting because quite a lot of them are very similar, right? There was just some new additions. So just not sure why they don't just put the additions in there rather than trying to include them with everything else. It would be easier if we just said, all right, this is what's new or this is what's changed.
That would be great as well. We converted our bar to an additional dining room a few weeks ago. Must a table where people are eating be 6 feet from the bar? My bartender wears masks. The bartender is now basically a service bar making drinks for the servers.
Yeah, I mean, any bars, anything has to be 6 feet from the bar.
Let's see here. What about a large tent? Can that be used to expand seats of a restaurant when you close the tent from cold? In other words, can indoor dining rooms be used in a tent?
Yes, because if as soon as you put all 4 flaps down, or even 3 flaps down, you're subjected to indoor dining rules. So you would be able to go to the 25% capacity.
Thanksgiving Eve is approaching. Is outdoor standing allowed as long as it is not within 6 feet of a bar?
Um,
Excellent
and I
question.
think this is exactly one of the reasons why the bar seating and the whole bar thing, I think the governor's so panicked about all the kids coming home from college. And I mean, if I can remember back that far, I remember that was a big night out. Yes, I mean, if you're outdoor, you don't, really you should have people seated, right? While they're eating and drinking. They should be sitting at tables. They can't sit at bars, but they can still be there.
Okay. Deirdre, I'm trying to understand in the Q&A section. So let's see where you are, Deirdre. Deirdre, I unmuted you so you can elaborate a little more. I don't understand. What do you mean in the Q&A section? Okay. Hannah, do you feel they will make an exception for New Year's Eve, even if seated tables only?
Oh, for the expansion, yeah, good point. We've had actually some people calling us about New Year's Eve brides that are having a New Year's Eve wedding. And part of the reason why they're having a New Year's Eve wedding is they want to be celebrating at midnight. So that certainly is one of the things that we are asking for is that exemption. Whether we get it or not, who knows?
Christy, is there any bar seating if you have plexiglass? Not at this time,
Right.
unfortunately. But we're asking, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to bowling alley. So Joe, can you ask your question in regards to bowling alleys? Okay. The Q&A comment just clarified my comment on the governor spoke about banquets. Okay. So, okay, good. We answered Deirdre's question.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know your question, Joe, in regards to bowling alleys.
You want to read it to me, Shaw? Maybe I can get it.
He didn't ask. He just
Oh.
said back to bowling alleys.
Okay.
Bowling alleys, I believe, is classified as entertainment. So you don't close at 10 p.m. It's very specific for food and beverage establishments that have to close at 10 p.m. And then the next line says that entertainment can continue past 10 p.m., but you must close your food and beverage for the evening. You cannot reopen until 5 a.m. And that's an executive order, not the protocols.
Is that it?
Can restaurants deliver after 10 p.m.? Yes, they can. You can also have outdoor dining past 10 p.m. to your regular hours. The bar, okay. No plexiglass at the bar at this time. That was another question about the plexiglass.
Now, also just keep in mind that we don't know what the locals are going to do. We try to have that, there's one that all the rules applied. However, I do feel like from what I'm hearing that like what happened in Newark, where you're seeing cities, Elizabeth, I think Passaic, where there's been some spikes, you may see mayors roll back on lowering the curfew earlier than 10. And in the past, the governor's not allowed that. But it looks like he is going to. I know Colleen had a question really quick. I don't know if we got it. I think we answered Colleen's question about your staff does not have to be out at 10 o'clock, just your guests.
Yes. Is there a last call for beer if bar closes at 10? Can they bring to lane to drink or eat? It's really sketchy, but
Can they bring it to where?
to the lane. So it's 9:55 and someone just put in an order for a beer and some hot wings, particularly me. And can they bring it to me at the lane while I'm bowling?
Oh,
It's a really good question.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a million what ifs. You know, I think it's probably, if they're not eating, you know, I'm not an attorney, and I think we have a few on here, but I mean, if they're
Yeah,
not,
Gary's on here. Where are you, Gary?
but yeah, I mean, if you're closing your food and beverage establishment, so the bar, the restaurant inside the bowling alley, you're not serving food there. And that has to be closed at 10. They're serving in the entertainment portion. I mean, I think you have a case to do it, you know? I mean, I don't know. I don't own a business, so it's easy for me to say. It's easier to ask for forgiveness, but.
Okay, what is the maximum or minimum temperature for a guest or staff?
The CDC, I think it's anything over 100, but I'm not 100% sure. We can get clarification on that. I think it's 100.
Okay. For venues, can we put beer and wine on tables and stay open past 10 p.m.?
No.
No, not in the indoors.
And you shouldn't be using like pitchers of beer or bottles of wine. Things should be served individually. You don't want multiple people touching the same item.
I don't see any questions.
We are both and sometimes operating at the same time. I don't know what that is. Okay. Now, if anyone if there's not a question that we hit, you guys want to unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you, Anthony. CDC considers a person to have a fever when he or she has measured temperature of 100.4 or greater, or feels warm to the touch, or gives a history of feeling feverish. Thank you, Anthony. We really appreciate that.
Okay. Does anyone, if Shop, you want to take everybody off mute for any other general questions?
Everyone's unmuted. Flood us with questions. We're ready.
Is there anything else?
If you're calling from your phone, you just hit *6. Okay, here's a question. The EO says to stop serving at 10 for casinos who are also allowed to stay open past 10. So to me, it sounds like you can actually serve until 10 p.m. It's definitely very gray.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to stop serving at 10 p.m. You cannot go past that.
Right, but the casinos can stay open, so that's probably a good point for the bowling alleys if they're in the same like entertainment situation.
Does the bar need to be set up outside after 10 p.m. for a venue or drink service to table outside after 10 p.m.? I think that's more a decision on your establishment, for your establishment to make, if they want to set up outside. But you can't have anyone at the outside bar seated. The seated rule applies for indoor and outdoor.
We got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Obviously, we'll keep you advised if there's any other changes. But again, for those of you that jumped on a little bit later, I did speak with the governor's office last night. There is no immediate thought process of closing down restaurants anytime soon, contrary to the rumor. You know, obviously, you know, a lot of our information is on the website that Shah said. We will have our response to the Stanford study that came out that talked about restaurants being super spreaders. We really picked it apart, poked the holes in it because it was done. It was a study that was done early in the spring before a lot of protocols, and even quite honestly, we were even open. So I'm not really sure how they got to some of their conclusions. So that will also be, so feel free to use that our talking points and our response. If you get any press calls, you can always reach out to the association. We're happy to help you. We will be starting up some legislative roundtables that you'll all be invited to, with some leadership on both sides of the aisle, because as we start trying to look at nipping at the edges of some ways to increase and creative ways to increase capacity, whether it's a self-certification, we're working with Rutgers to do some training that we're hoping to get a grant, and that will allow you and the restaurant industry to expand your operations. So, having your voice is important. Always keep in touch with your local legislators. One thing about that, the legislators, is they all have restaurants in their district, and hearing from you is vitally important. Even though they're limited in their power because of the state constitution, believe me, when they're chirping in the governor's ear or the governor's office, and making some really good logical arguments, it does matter. So I want to thank those of you who have done it. I see a lot of you on here have been great partners in doing that. So thank you. And again, we're here, the team and I. We know this is frustrating. We appreciate your patience, honest, and hand to God, we are trying to do everything we can. It hasn't been easy. It's not an easy administration. It's not just the restaurant industry, all businesses. They're not easy to deal with, but we're trying. So I just want to thank you all.
Sorry.
Thanks,
Mark,
Mary
yeah,
Lou.
your gas must be out by 10 p.m. Sorry.
I'm sorry, someone said something?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, thank you. I am wondering, referencing these local jurisdictions, I saw Newark and figured, okay, other cities are going to follow suit. If there is concern for mayors changing the 10 p.m. Closure and making it an earlier curfew, what's your best suggestion for us to be tracking this, recognizing, other than, setting up a Google News alert for mayors and talking about restaurant curfews, it seems kind of difficult to try to track 50 different towns at once.
50. We have 365 municipalities.
No,
so what we're going to do is I'm emailing the League of Municipalities and hoping that we can get somewhat of a heads up from the league that if let's just say, I live in Eatontown, so, Mayor Tallarico just says, we're going to close at 8 o'clock, that we would get a notification so that we could get it out to the members in that town.
Mary Lou.
That would be great.
We didn't talk about heating for tents in the different.
Well, the heating for tents is up to the municipalities. The governor did reach out and ask the local fire code officials to ease their restrictions on what is permitted for heating inside tents and also on sidewalks. But again, that remains jurisdiction of the local fire code official in that town.
Okay. That is all of our questions.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. If we don't talk with you, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And you got your sticker, your NJRHA. Thanks, Anthony. Make sure they'll be mailed out, your association sticker. And appreciate your membership and your support. And Anthony, welcome to the board.
Thank you, and have a wonderful day, all.